First one is from Billy from Kentucky. This will be a very quick one, I imagine. Hello, James and Dutch. I love the podcast and watch it all the time. I am thinking of joining a small independent promotion here locally. If I do, I'm thinking of using the name Filthy Frank Mantell. However, I feel the need to ask Dutch's permission to use it first. May I use the Mantell name, Dutch?
Hell no. Can't use my name. Were you crazy? Well, you can if you give me a little bit of a fee, and I'll make it affordable for you. So you can write me.
Right, Dirty Dutch Mantell with 2 L's at gmail.com.
Yeah, write me there, and I'll say what kind of deal we can work out. Yes, you can use the name because I don't own the name Mantell. I don't even own the Dirty Dutch. I mean, somebody could copyright that if they wanted to, and then keep me from using. Oh, well, nobody would do that, surely. But I did have another show called Down and Dirty with Dutch, and this guy wrote me and told me that I could not use Down and Dirty because he uses it on his show, and it wasn't even a wrestling show. It was actually a truck racing outfit, and he called it Down and Dirty Racing or something, but he said I couldn't use it. But I checked into it. Down and dirty is a popular phrase, so you really can't copyright those things. So I started to get Stephen P. New. Is that his name?
Yeah. I
started to get him to represent me, but I didn't. So, but I may even write the guy back and said, "Hey, I'm taking that name back," but I have no. And I also used Down and Dirty with Dutch on the Smoky Mountain show. I had a talk segment where I would interview guys in the middle of the ring, go Down and Dirty with Dutch. But yes, Filthy Frank, which is not original, by the way. I've heard that name before. But yes, you can go ahead and use it.
I apologize to the person who wrote this in. Oh, I'm sorry, I've actually found it. It's a guy called Chris. He says, and this actually ties into what you were just talking about, I'm Jamie Dundee's neighbour 2 houses down, so I'm a little traumatised, he says. But he also wants to say, did Dutch almost used another name, since there was another wrestler named Dutch Mantell from a few years earlier? I mean, you were Chris Gallagher at one point, weren't you? Briefly.
Yeah, I was Chris Gallagher at one point. And yes, there was another wrestler named Dutch Mantell, but not Dirty Dutch, Dutch Mantell. And I've talked about him before, but he wasn't a few years earlier. He was like 50 years earlier. And this name was given to me by Buddy Fuller when I started working for him years and years and years ago. And old story of him, and I've told this story before. I don't want to tell it again, but he was a guy from the Netherlands who was a shooter who would go to these county fairs, and he would take on any comer, and people would bet on it. And people that bet on the local guy, of course, he'd cover all those bets. And then he would work an angle toward the last night where he would set a guy in the audience, a big guy, and he'd have a big house for that Saturday night show. And everybody would bet on the big guy because Dutch Mantell, he only weighed like 180, 170, but he knew how to tie guys up. So he would take their big guy in there, and he looked like he was going to win for a while, and all of a sudden he'd just tie him up and beat him. Of course, he was going to beat him anyway because that was a setup. And then and nobody had ever seen this big guy that he put in the audience himself. So he would leave the town with probably $1,000, $2,000, which back in those days is like 10 or 15,000, or maybe more. And that's what he was known for. But anyway, yeah, there was another wrestler named Dutch Mantell many, many years before I took the name.
Because you wrestled under your real name, misspelt, I think. You wrestled under Chris Gallagher.
Yes.
ignoring Zeb Colter and Uncle Zebekiah from the WWF runs, did you ever have any other names when you wrestled in the early days?
I probably did, but I don't remember them. Sometimes you just make up a name on the spur of the moment. I think I wrestled his name is, I can't remember, Blackjack something. I don't know. But I only used it like one time. But Chris Gallagher, I did use that name.